I was very confident Arsenal were going to beat Spurs comfortably yesterday for two reasons. Number one, just Arsenal. They are a wonderful football team. They've got top class in every single position, and they've got great depth in every single position as well. Gabriel's out. Oh, who do we bring in? Hincapié or Mascara? They've got top class everywhere twice. Arteta's tactics are absolutely fantastic. Everything about that Arsenal team at the minute is just going really well. They are a brilliant footballing side. They can beat anyone, and they will beat anyone. So I was very confident Arsenal were going to win, and that was half the reason. The other half the reason, or reason number two rather, was because of Spurs. Or to narrow in on it, Thomas Frank. Because I was confident Spurs wouldn't lay a glove on Arsenal yesterday. But even I was surprised at how bad they were. That yesterday was pathetic. I get fed up on here. I feel bad coming on here pretty much every week going, Spurs are boring, Spurs are boring, Spurs are boring. It's boring to keep saying it. It must be boring to constantly listen to me saying it. But I've watched a lot of Tottenham this season, and they are boring pretty much every single game. I couldn't tell you the last time I watched a Spurs game thinking, Spurs played well. Probably against Man City, the first game of the season. But apart from that, it's just being boring. But I wouldn't even describe yesterday's performance at the Emirates from Spurs as boring, because that would be kind. Yesterday was a disgrace. That was pathetic from Thomas Frank. He rocked up away to Arsenal in a North London derby and played as if, as I always say, he was still the Brentford head coach. I think that would be being kind. He played as if he was a League Two team in an FA Cup tie or something like that. There was no intent, as I always say, to win the game. There was no intent to get over the halfway line. They rocked up and tried to play for a 0-0 against one of the best teams in football at the minute, and they got their arses handed to them, and deservedly so. They got battered. And every time Arsenal scored a goal, Thomas Frank looked clueless on the side. He didn't know what to do. Finished 4-1. They were lucky to get that one with Richarlison scoring an absolute fantastic goal, but that's what it was going to take, because it wasn't going to be the tactics. They weren't going to score because of something Thomas Frank had planned. The only thing he had tactically in order to try and create something against Arsenal was Vicario, the goalkeeper, whose worst ability is his kicking, just launching it from the halfway line. Free kicks inside their own half, just get him to hoof it forward towards Dan, so hope he can flick it down and they get something. That was the only tactic. The next tactic was Danzel's long throws. Set piece FC, Thomas Frank rocked up. It was pathetic, honestly. I've seen a lot of Spurs fans suggesting they need change already. I completely get it. I 100% understand. They've had very, very little encouragement from Spurs this season to say, look, we're on to something good. Oh, it's going to get better. There's very little. It's just boring as hell. Absolute boring. They're 17th. We can agree the form table's 5 games. They're 17th in the form table. So it's not like they're boring and picking up results. They were at the start of the season, but they've slid down the table now. They're 9th. They're only going in one direction, and that's backwards. Give it a couple of weeks, they could be in the bottom half of the table. Inevitably, those fans are getting the pushback from some other Spurs fans, but also from the journalists and ex-players saying he's not had long enough, he's not got his own players. Maybe he hasn't had long enough. Okay, time I agree with. He's had 3-4 months. It's difficult to say that is plenty time. But I don't feel like I'm watching something that's not Thomas Frank's tactics. I feel like I am watching what Thomas Frank wants to do. That's the thing. That's the concern for Spurs fans. That is what he wants to do. He's not making do until Kulusevski's back or Maddison's back, because look at the players he's got available to him. And this goes into he's not got his own players thing. He shouldn't get his own players. He shouldn't need his own players. Let's not make on Thomas Frank has taken over a poor Spurs squad. Right, look at that team. Romero, Van der Ven, 2 top-class centre-backs who were missing for large periods under Postecoglou last season, being ever-present under Thomas Frank. He's got the first-choice Spurs defence that were brilliant under Postecoglou when fit. When Postecoglou had Udogie, Van der Ven, Romero, Porro, they were brilliant. Statistically, they were one of the best teams in the Premier League when he had that back four. The issue was he rarely had that back four. Frank's had them all season, plus Spence. It's not good enough. It is not good enough whatsoever. I completely understand why any Tottenham fan wants him gone already, because there's little evidence to suggest it's going to get any better. But that yesterday from Spurs in a North London derby was absolutely disgraceful. Coward tactics in what should be a big game. It wasn't a big game because Tottenham didn't even turn up. Thomas Frank didn't even let it be a big game. Anyway, Arsenal, fantastic. Eze, fantastic. Enough said about them, shall we? Let's move on to Ellen Road. Leeds United 1, Aston Villa 2. I mean, Leeds were thinking, hello, here we are. We're 1-0 up. We're going to get a valuable 3 points. But despite that statistic flashing up at half-time, that since April 2023... Leeds have never lost a game where they've taken the lead at Ellen Road. You did think, a large part is actually it's all the championship, bar a few games this season. You never really felt confident the Leeds were going to hold on. Villa weren't quite purring in the first half. A few nice phases of play, but they weren't quite up at it. Leeds were keeping them at arm's length. They were looking quite comfortable, I think, in the first half, Leeds. But the second half, it started becoming the Morgan Rogers show, didn't it? Malin coming on at half-time, making an immediate impact. Good assist, good finish that by Rogers. That little touch into the far corner. I think sometimes it's easy to get too much contact on that. But the free kick, I mean, it's a fantastic strike. Don't get me wrong. But my word, if you're a Leeds fan, you're looking at Joe Rodon not jumping on the wall. You're looking at your goalkeeper Perry just stood still, doesn't even move. I mean, it's not like the ball flies into the top corner ending. And don't get me wrong, it's moving. It's a difficult one to judge. But it's not that far away from the goalkeeper. I'd be raging if that was my keeper. Then why not even, if you can't see the ball, then that's on you. Make sure you can see it and then try and get the bloody thing. Villa end up getting the win. And that conversation continues about Farke, isn't it? Again, I completely understand why any Leeds United fan would want change. And if I was a Leeds fan, I would have wanted change. I mean, I hold my hands up. I'd have changed him in the summer. When there was rumours that Leeds were looking to replace him in the summer, I understood why. Because is anyone ever confident he was good enough to be a manager in the Premier League? I think the answer is no. I think a lot of Leeds fans were, okay, he deserves a chance, but I'm not sure he's good enough kind of thing. I think that's the camp when I was reading a lot of comments from Leeds fans, that's the camp I found most of them in, which was Farke deserves a crack at it. I'm just not very confident he's going to be good enough. How many games do the board give him until they decide to pull the trigger? Because it feels inevitable now, Farke getting sacked. It does feel like a change is on the horizon. And losing at home to Aston Villa feels like it's a tough way to end your job. But that's not the reason, is it? What's that, 1 win in 6 now for Leeds? They're in the bottom 3. Speak about Tottenham going in one direction, so are Leeds. But there's only a couple of places they can go. They won't hit the bottom. Wolves have definitely got that locked down. But it's feasible that in a couple of weeks, Leeds are 19th and Burnley have gone back above them. Speaking of the form table with Tottenham, Leeds are 19th in that form table. It's not... I say it's not good enough for Leeds. It was always going to be difficult for them this season, I think. So therefore, you've got to squeeze everything you can out of that squad. And I think starting the likes of Aronson over Nonto, who I thought looked quite bright when he came on, albeit brief spells. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about decisions Farke's making. But a good win for Aston Villa. Quietly going about their business, Villa, aren't they? That's them up into the top 4, I think. So they are in form, under the radar, the villains. Moving on to St James's Park, Newcastle 2, Manchester City 1. I thoroughly enjoyed watching this game, and for transparency, as always, I watched the Arsenal game, I watched the Leeds game, I watched the Newcastle City game. It could have finished 5-3 Newcastle. I think Newcastle deserved to win. I want to stress that, because I'm away to suggest I don't agree with a couple of the officials' decisions here, and it's anti-Newcastle, but Harvey McBarnes could have scored 4 or 5 in that game in particular. That miss in the first half. Wow, not the one where Foden got it pinched off of. That looks easier than it is. But the one where Murphy just plays it across. Well, he should be scoring that one, Harvey Barnes. His first goal was the more difficult one of his chances, I think. Murphy, very consistent. His deliveries over the weekend, on Saturday night, his deliveries were absolutely fantastic. 3, 4, 5 crosses he put in, just bang, on the money. That one for Walterman's header, loved that. I love a winger that can consistently deliver it like that. I mean, that offside, what is this about? I keep saying it. I don't know why or how we can trust semi-automated offside. I don't get it. It's an image generated by a computer. I keep saying I don't trust it. I do not trust it at all. And I'm sure when the thing pops up on the screen, the player is onside or offside, but it doesn't mean I have to trust what they're showing me. I don't know. I'm too skeptical, I guess. But actually, when I'm looking at this more and more, what they've done, Diaz is jumping. He's not jumping. When you pause it, when Waterman's headed the ball, Diaz is, and then you look at the image they've used to show that Bruno's onside, it's a completely different Diaz. Like, what the hell is going on there? And then the rule is to take it from the armpit of the defender. That's not his armpit, it's the edge of his sleeve, which is where you take it for the attacker, because sleeve, not handball, arm handball, right? That bit makes sense. But it says in the rules on the FA, you take it from the armpit of the defender. And that ain't his armpit. I don't get what they've done here. I just do not get it whatsoever. Sometimes I can understand, even though I disagree with the decision, I can understand it. But this, no. I mean, I don't blame the referee on the pitch. It's not his fault. He's just been told he's onside, get on with the game. But that set of images that came out with the semi-automated offside and Diaz, that's enough. That's enough now. As in, I've been sceptical about this, and I've now got one bit of evidence, and it's only one bit of evidence, but that's enough now. You only need one. You only need one example where it's massively wrong, and I think it is that wrong, to suggest that the whole thing's... You can't. How are you meant to trust it now? How are you meant to trust this system that we've got going forward when that is the results of it? God knows. Also, think it should be a pen on Phil Foden. I've never understood why they don't get given. When the player shoots and then gets fouled, if that's in the middle of the pitch and he passes and gets fouled, it's a free kick, yellow card all day long. I don't know why it's different in the box. It always has been, though. But this one felt a little bit... This wasn't shoot and get pushed. This was shooting and get studded on the foot. Shah got away with one there, but a big win for Newcastle. They needed that. There's been a lot of focus on Newcastle the last few weeks, coming into the international break. Not in great form, just outside the relegation zone. They needed to get... That win was important. Eddie Howe's first win against Manchester City as well. Liverpool 0, Nottingham Forest 3. Speaking of the form table, Liverpool are 18th in the form table. They both got the same amount of points as Leeds, just above them on goal difference. Only Wolves have got less points in the last 5 games than Liverpool. Huge win for Nottingham Forest, though. And I think, understandably, there's going to be a lot of focus on Liverpool and what's going wrong and the pressure on Arne Slot. But let's just take a moment to say, bloody hell, Nottingham Forest, what an absolute fantastic result it is. Regardless of Liverpool's form and the stories around Liverpool at the minute, that is a superb win for a Nottingham Forest side who are lacking in confidence at the minute. They've had a bumpy start under Sean Dyche. It's not been great, but it's not been bad either. This is where I always say I think new signings need a moment, and perhaps, well, you could say there was one there for Jesus and Scavone, as I say his name, the right back. They both scored. But I think for Dyche, I think he needed a moment just as a manager to sort of say to everyone, look, we're going to be all right this season. I think they will be. But that win just gives them all a big comforting cuddle, I think. Now, I didn't watch this game at Anfield. Going by the highlights, though, Liverpool were perhaps maybe a little bit unlucky not to take the lead. And then from there on in, they didn't really offer too much. And Nottingham Forest got the win, and a bloody good win it was too. Bournemouth 2, West Ham 2. I'm disappointed. I think it's a point gained and 2 points dropped to be 2-0 up at half-time. 2 fantastic goals from Callum Wilson. Second half, though, we just sat back. Our tactics were awful. I think it would have worked with Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest won at Anfield last season as well under Nuno. And I think if we had Nottingham Forest players from last season, we might have seen this game out. We had Milenkovic and Murillo at the back. We don't. We have Kilman and Igor. And those two were part of the reason that we ended up conceding 2 goals. Kilman giving the penalty away, lucky not to get sent off. And then between Kilman and Igor, they lost Unal, who a year ago scored an absolute fantastic free kick against West Ham, did his ACL, was out for 12 months, come back and scored against West Ham. I don't like that guy. Do not like him. Bournemouth unlucky not to win in the end. They absolutely deserved. They were the better team easily. Second half, they were brilliant, just causing us all sorts of problems. Big performance from Areola. So I'm pleased we got a draw. I would have taken a draw before the game, but I was disappointed by the end of the game to only get a draw, having been 2-0 up at half-time. Wolves 0, Crystal Palace 2. I mean, I only seen the highlights of this. It showed you one shot from Wolves, and that was it. So it would suggest that there wasn't really much highlights for Wolves. It was the same old, just with a different manager in the dugout. But Pino with an absolute belter. Munoz's goal is better than it looks, I think. That's a very difficult skill to sort of swoop it into the net like that, with the angle of the ball, the movement of the ball, the pace of the ball, the lack of sort of distance and reaction time Munoz has got. So to swoop that into the net, I think was a brilliant finish from him, but a great run from Pino. It looked like a comfortable enough win for Crystal Palace. And, you know, as a West Ham fan, obviously I'm hoping Wolves lose. I'm hoping Burnley lose. I'm hoping Nottingham Forest lose, albeit they didn't. So I was pleased to see Crystal Palace win, but 2 points from 12 games now. Damn, that is bad. Burnley 0, Chelsea 2. I watched the first hour of this and then I had work to do around the West Ham game. I think Chelsea can feel a little bit aggrieved with the officials' performance here. There was a lot of little things that all adds up. I don't think it's a handball by Cucurella for Neto's goal. Does it hit his hand? Maybe. But I don't want to see stuff like that ruled out. It literally gets kicked at him. But when Chelsea, that goal kick thing, though, in the first half, see stuff like that. Sanchez puts it down. You haven't seen it. Sanchez puts it down. Chalobah's to his left on the edge of the 6-yard box. Sanchez kicks it to Chalobah. It goes out the 6-yard box. He puts his hand on it and drags it back. And obviously the Burnley players are saying, hang on a minute, he's taking a goal kick because Fleming had entered the box. And the referee said, oh no, he's away to take the goal kick. One of them, one day one referee is going to say, indirect free kick or penalty. I don't know the rule for indirect free kicks. I always thought handball was indirect free kicks. Just sort of changed the penalties, hasn't it? Pen. Someone's going to give it one day. But down the other end in the second half, that was more interesting with the corner. So before the corner's taken for Burnley, the referee blows up and calls over Badashil and Esteve and just warns them, stop grappling. They're both at it. There's quite a few players grappling each other. So he warns them, puts them back into the box, tells them, come on then, take the corner. Not sure who takes it for Burnley. As he kicks it, the referee blows up and goes and books Badashil because he's pushed Esteve off the pitch and you won't let him come back on. Esteve's up against the post trying to get on the pitch. Badashil's blocking him. And again, the Burnley players are saying, well, that's a pen then because the ball's in play. And the referee's going, no, retake the corner. But I think Burnley have got an argument there because he signalled to take the corner and he took it and then he blew. So as far as I'm concerned, the ball's in play. Then he's blowing because there's a foul by the Chelsea defender. I think Burnley are well within the rights to put in to raise their hand and say, that's a pen then. Because your ball's in play and you're saying there's a foul. So surely that means it's a penalty. I think the referee just bottled it a little bit. I don't think he ever wanted to give a penalty. I think he just wanted to boot Badashili for what he was doing, and then because the ball was in play, it sort of caused him a little bit of awkwardness. But yeah, I think that should maybe, if the ball was in play, I think that's a pen. And then they made it 2-0. Enzo Fernandez down in the last minute. Fulham with a very important win against Sunderland. Let's not underestimate how much this could mean to Marco Silva and Fulham, just lingering outside the relegation zone going into this game at Craven Cottage against an in-form Sunderland. And I've only seen the highlights of this game. It looked quite even between two teams. You know, Wilson went close. Kevin didn't go too far away. Sunderland didn't look like that too much. Leafy possibly going closest after a long ball from Roof's excellent first touch. And he looked weird, Leafy, didn't he? I think he had like black leggings on and black boots and a black kit. So it was just like covered in black garments. So he looked a bit strange. But the excellent first touch, good shot, just went wide. But the assist for Jimenez's goal by Chukwueze, I love a good assist. You probably know this by now. I love a good assist. I think I almost get more impressed by assists than goals to some extent. Depends on the strike, obviously. But this goal is all about that cross from Chukwueze. Just gets on his left foot, whips it in, and it's in that corridor where between the goalkeeper and the centre-backs, where the centre-backs, you can't really touch it, because if you do, there's a bloody good chance it ends up in the back of your net. So it's difficult to defend, and they can't quite reach it, but Jimenez gets enough on it to divert it past Roofs. Good, solid win for Fulham. They needed that. They needed that 3 points just to breathe, because a few teams in and around them, like West Ham and like Nottingham Forest, obviously got 1 point and 3 points respectively. It would have just made things a little bit more awkward for Fulham. So that was an important win for them. And it finished Brighton 2, Brentford 1. We need consistency. One thing I always complain about is lack of consistency from referee to referee to referee. They play by different rules sometimes. Same organisation, same rule book, but referees apply the laws differently. And that's what frustrates me the most. I'm talking about the penalty at the very end for Brentford, which was missed, and I'm glad it was. Justice. Because that ball comes in, De Coupier, I think it is, got his hands on Shada, and he goes down, and the ref blows up. That happens every cross. Every time a team puts in a cross, that type of grappling is happening, and it never goes punished, right? And it's one of them, I would say, well, either punish them all or punish none of them. You've got to be fair and you've got to be consistent. But that didn't feel like either when that happened. It was a very soft penalty, in my opinion. So I'm kind of pleased it was missed, and it's nothing anti-Brentford or pro-Brighton. Trust me, I've got Thiago in my FPL team and I'm doing crap. I need all the points I can get. So it would have helped me out a little bit had he got a second one in that game. But Brighton got a win, another 3 points for them just to move them up the table a little bit, and a defeat from Brentford. It feels a bit, at this stage of the season, quite insignificant to both teams. It doesn't feel like a huge win. It doesn't feel like a big loss either. Minte looked like he was the best player on the pitch again, going by the highlights only. But anyway, thank you very much for joining me. If you've got anything you'd like to discuss from the Premier League weekend, please let me know in the comments below. If you're new to Tartan Geo, please do subscribe and also drop a like on it. Man U Everton tonight, I'm looking forward to it. Should be a good game. Probably won't be, but I'm hoping it is a good game. We need a little bit of entertainment this evening, don't we? Difficult one to call. Obviously, Man U are in form, Everton not so much, but you always feel like Everton are a side capable of just getting something from any game they come up against. So I think I said 1-1 in the Premier League preview show that I did. So I'm going to stick with that because I'm quite stubborn. But also, I do fancy a 1-1 tonight. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll catch you in a bit.